Hello and welcome to this interview for the World of Work. My name is Joe and I'm a member of the Pathways team on Event and Hub Assistant here. And today I'm going to have a little sit-down interview with Muzammil, who I have with me.
Hi guys, hope you're all well.
And so hopefully we're going to hear about Muzammil and his course and kind of like his experience at university. So with that being said, I'll get straight in there and sort of Muzammil, what course are you doing and where are you studying it?
I'm doing biological sciences, neuroscience at the University of Leicester.
Perfect. I mean, sounds like a very intense course, but are you enjoying it so far?
I am enjoying it. Yeah, it's. I think it's definitely a step up workload-wise when you get into second year, because these exams start to count towards your final degree mark. But on the whole, I think it's manageable.
No, I think that's great. Thank you. For students that are perhaps interested in following your footsteps and studying this course, neuroscience, what subjects did you take at school and college to be able to get onto your course?
At college, I took biology, psychology, and English literature. You can also do biology, chemistry, and another subject. Chemistry in particular is quite handy when you get into the second year, where things start to become a bit more about structures of things and chemicals. And if you have the knowledge at college of the certain key terms, then it's much more easy to sort of decode when you're actually learning it, compared to me, who only studied biology. And so I kind of spent a few weeks going through A-level chemistry content and, looking at YouTube videos, that kind of thing, just familiarizing myself. So those kind of science subjects. So if you are taking psychology, I'd encourage you, because it's still a science, basically. And when you get into, especially neuroscience, because psychology focuses on the brain as well, that also gives you a bit of background. So either or,
No, I think that makes perfect sense. Doing a science course, you want to try and get as much science in there as possible. So rather than just the one course doing two different subjects, I guess you get that sort of well-rounded approach. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But kind of on that, why English literature? How did that sort of come around?
English literature, I kind of told myself that if I didn't study it further, I wouldn't really be being myself, because at secondary school I did really well at English literature and language. It was also when I got published as part of the writing group I was at. So I won the Sue Townsend Award in Leicester. And then from there, I just thought, if I didn't take it at college, I'd be limiting myself from learning about, even better writers and even better novels and stuff, and learning how to analyze them and appreciate them better, but also in a more academic way. So I just had to take it at A-level, and it was definitely very fun, because my teachers have, they've taught for many years, so they've got this classical, English professor type of look. It was hilarious. It was just a really fun time.
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily a necessity to study that course. It was just very much, it was your passion and you wanted to do it because you kind of had that space free to do it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that speaks to other subjects. So anything essay based, I think it kind of gives you an edge when you study a science subject at university, because when it comes to essay writing and third year dissertations, if you have the knowledge of how to reference, how to write a good introduction, those kind of things, although they're quite basic and sort of everyday type of knowledge things, especially in correspondence, writing emails, etc. It is quite handy, because it makes, even though the content itself is hard, as long as you can write something that makes sense and is understandable, you'll get some sort of mark. So that's sort of like the first step, and then it's all about adding detail, etc.
Oh no, that's great. So I guess it's obviously the content doesn't really carry forward, but it's more the transferable skills that doing a subject like English literature gives you to then take forward,
100%.
come really handy, I guess. Yeah
100%.
Brilliant. And then sort of on the sort of the front of skills, what about on your course itself? Kind of, you know, what skills have you learned and developed whilst studying neuroscience?
So the first year of my course, it was kind of a balance of, it wasn't as neuroscience focused as it is in my second year right now. So the skills I picked up in first year were I learned how to measure or do calorimetry, which is essentially where you use a very high-tech looking machine, and you can essentially measure the concentration of something just by, blasting a beam of light through it. You learn, the concepts behind these machines, how to work them. I also extracted my DNA, which is pretty cool. It was kind of gross at the start because you have to like spit in a tube, and then you have to like do all sorts of chemical reactions to actually get the DNA out. But we were essentially looking at whether you're a night person or a morning person in that experiment. I kind of came in between because obviously during term time you have to get up early for lectures, but then during the summer you can kind of stay up late and relax. So it was crazy to actually do something on myself, as it were, and to figure something out about myself. So yeah, the skills kind of break down into actual lab techniques and just knowledge, really.
Wow, I mean, that was great. I mean, did you kind of expect that you'd do sort of experiments on yourself, or was that kind of like, a bit of a shock to the system?
It was a shock to the system because first semester was kind of typical science experiments that you kind of do at secondary school, where you have instructions and you have to follow them and then interpret the results based on what you've learned in class. But in second year it was much more about you, and because it was much more about the body, you could kind of I guess think about it in a way that applies to yourself. So learning about, I don't know, how fast neurons work, you can sort of there was actually a practical where we had to electrocute ourselves. Well, not electrocute, but we kind of had to get an electrode and basically measure how fast an impulse traveled through one of the nerves in your elbow. And in previous years, our professors told us that they actually let students turn up the amount of voltage they were giving their friends, but obviously they didn't want to damage people, so they've since just kept it at a minimum voltage. But just seeing that real-time activity, it really allows you to appreciate that there are things always happening even when you think they're not.
That's incredible. I mean, I'm not sure whether I'd want to be in a class where I can get electrocuted, but if that's what you enjoy, then that's amazing. So would you then say it's quite fair to say that obviously neuroscience, you don't study that at secondary school and college, but in terms of just the whole science and the labs and the stuff that you do, is it kind of like a massive step up and a massive difference from university to sort of secondary school and A levels, or have you found it quite similar?
There are periods where you'll find it similar. So for example, safety is pretty much the same across all types of things. So you have probably in a secondary school you'll be asked to take your blazers off or your uniform off, whereas at university you get your own lab coat, which is pretty cool. But it's the same, wear your goggles, make sure you tie your hair. So just learning about the sort of I guess rules is that sort of builds up. But there isn't that much difference. The equipment changes, but then you're allowed to practice with that as well. So there are times where you'd be like, oh, I remember, I don't know, learning about DNA in secondary school. I remember using this chemical in college. So there are flashes of familiarity, and all of that just sort of goes towards you understanding something that's quite hard to understand.
Yeah, so it's nice that it kind of builds up rather than just kind of something completely different. So no, that's really nice. And then finally, I've kind of got one last question, and that's what one thing would you like people to know about your course before they think about applying?
Neuroscience is like all science, arguably, is maths based. So although maths can be like the banes of people's lives, and rightly so, right? Because it's very complicated. I think trying your best at secondary and college it's not necessary to take A-level maths at college to do this course, but just having basic concepts of, multiplication, division, how to rearrange something, those kind of things, just practicing those skills, maybe in half terms or over the summer holidays, it will definitely set you up for things you learn at the university level. And it's not like, the teachers just throw an equation at you, like memorize it, we're going to test you rigorously on this. But they also break it down for you as well, just so this will come up in the exam. And so it's something I need to fully understand before that time actually comes.
No, nice. Were you someone that was good at the maths or dreading the maths?
Dreading the maths.
Appreciate your honesty.
Yeah. I think it's important to be clear about that. Like one of the senior tutors actually at the school, because University of Leicester split into the School of Medicine, and then the School of Biological Sciences, and like other schools for the other subjects. So one of the senior tutors, he didn't do A-level maths, but he has a PhD. He lectures me. He makes everything sound much more easier. So I think by not actually having it and then learning it, you kind of understand the struggle people go through who actually don't have that background. And so sort of, in the back of your mind, you're kind of working towards making it simple anyway, so everyone can access it, even if they have had studied maths or haven't. So, because of that, it just made the experience much more enjoyable.
No, I think that's a really important skill to be able to develop. So that's great. Thank you. And then, obviously, I think it's safe to say that neuroscience is quite a difficult and challenging subject, but would you say it's one definitely worth sticking with if you've got that passion for it?
Yeah. So if you have a passion for understanding, why we behave, why we do the behaviors we do, just understanding the brain, I think it's definitely something I'd encourage you to study, especially now in isolation, where mental health is much more important. I think understanding the scientific basis of not that I've studied it yet, but understanding how we process information, I think makes it much more easier, because it takes so much stress off of not having that knowledge. So studying neuroscience, understanding how we behave, just learning about yourself, I think it's very important now. So yeah, definitely if you're passionate, go ahead and study neuroscience.
No, that's fantastic. And then so flash forward to a couple of years time, and you've graduated and you've got the degree and done really, really well. What do you hope to be doing with that degree?
I'm hoping to do some research myself, not limited to just neuroscience, because the good thing about biological sciences is you kind of get a mix of everything. So it's not just, you do have your own sort of discipline. So, you can specialize in one sort of area, but you do other stuff, you can do other areas within science. And so when it comes to actually doing something, you're not restricted to just doing, say, a project in just neuroscience. You can do a project in biochemistry, or something that interests you. So I'm hoping to sort of dabble between neuroscience, maybe biochemistry, myself, and then I don't know. I've been toying with the idea of doing a master's, but I don't know if that's something. Maybe I'll leave until a year without being in education, and thinking about it, or if it's something that I'll just go straight into after I graduate. So that kind of thing right now.
No, and I think that's fair. You don't have to sort of decide straight away, and you can always return back to a master's, which is the beauty of it. So I think that's a great decision. So, well, I think it's safe to say we wish you all the best with your course, and hope that you are able to achieve those dreams of yours. And it'll be great to see kind of what experiments you'll be doing on people in the future. So maybe I won't be volunteering for it, but it'll be nice to see kind of like what difference you can make. So, but that's all we've got time for today. So thank you to Muzammil for joining us. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about neuroscience as a subject and a course, and perhaps even a couple of routes that you could sort of pursue after studying that course. And then that's everything for now. So please stay tuned for any future events that we have, and all the best. Goodbye.
Bye.